In the spirit of reconciliation, Up Past Bedtime would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the incredible lands in which we record this podcast. By extension, we pay our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, their past and present elders, and the connection they have to Australia's land, sea, and community. Hello and welcome back to Up Past Bedtime. I'm Bella Messina and I am going to be staying up late with you tonight. If you are back after the launch last week, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you here. It has been really exciting to have the season launch again and to be back into the swing of the potty. I'm tired. Lots of recording, lots of editing, but I do love it. I kind of feel like on the podcast, I am able to connect with you guys in a way that I just can't on other platforms. And that is because of the long form nature of podcasts. And I just really love that. And I love having this opportunity to do that. You guys have given me some really great feedback as well, saying that you love sort of the little upgrades that I've done and little bits of extra love and care that I've been putting into the podcast. And so I'm really appreciative of everyone who's noticed that and who continues to support me and, who shared how much they've missed me and how much they've missed the podcast and been looking forward to the new season. It just really makes me feel happy and good and pleased to be here. This week is a bit of a emotional one. Well, to be honest, I've tried to reduce the emotion a little bit in it so that I can get through the episode. If you've seen the title, I am doing a note, not a letter, a note to my daughters today. Welcome to season 4 of Up Past Bedtime with me, Bella Messina. This season, we're doing more real, more raw, more unfiltered late night chats that should feel like a conversation with your bestie. I'll be talking about everything: life, love, motherhood, and the messy middle of figuring out your 20s and 30s. So let's get right to oversharing, shall we? Because honestly, the best conversations always happen when you're up past bedtime. I want to talk about all the things that I want them to know, and I just want to pass on about my experience being their mum. I think, recently I've been doing a lot of reflection on, motherhood and my separation and watching my daughters grow. Rosie is going to be 4 in a couple of weeks, which is just to me. And I just felt like I wanted to try and capture this time and this moment and everything that I've been learning, especially recently going on my journey as a single mother. And I want to kind of time capsule it up in a way that maybe when they're older, because they definitely do not listen to the podcast now, they would find it so boring, would have no idea what's going on. I don't think either of them even conceptualize what I do as a job. I don't really talk about it with them. If you ask them, what does mummy do for a job? I don't think they'd be able to answer you. But anyway, they just don't get it at the moment. But one day, many years in the future, if it's possible that they can listen back to this, I would love them to. But I've also found in a lot of my work during, my separation and discovering myself in the last year, I have done a lot of inner child healing. And I feel like what I'm about to talk about today is very healing for the inner child and is a really nice reflection on where you've come from and how you're going as a mum. And I just find anything to do with reflecting on me as a mother or things I've learnt as a mother is really, really, really touching to my inner child. So this is not just for Benny and Rosie. This is also maybe to any other mum out there who needs to hear some of the stuff I want to pass on, who needs to have a hug for themselves, but maybe a hug for their inner child. And maybe this might inspire you to sit down and write your own letter to your own kids. When I went on that motherhood retreat I went on in 2024, that kind of changed a lot of my life. One of the exercises they had us do was to write a letter to our children. It was really transformational. And I'm excited to be doing it again now, over a year later. Of course, though, we've got to start the episode off with my nightstand must-have. Now, a lot of people message and they're like, is that like a branding thing you're doing? Is that a sponsoring thing? No. It's literally just something I'm doing for fun, just to like talk about products that I love or things that I've been doing that I love or watching or whatever. And my nightstand must-have that genuinely is something that lives in my nightstand that I love. I take it everywhere with me. I even take it to GBs or take them to GBs. I don't know. AirPod Maxes. Lol, I've never worked with Apple. I don't think Apple does any type of like influencer interaction. So please know my AirPod Maxes have been bought with my own money. I'm touching these ones because these are also AirPod Maxes that I use for when I'm recording the potty. These just like play my own voice back into my head so I can check that the sound quality is fine, because you'd be surprised the amount of times in the first season I would record a whole episode and then go to edit it and the sound would be it was not a fun experience. But yeah, I love my Apple AirPod Maxes. My personal ones are the green color, but these, hands down, the best over-the-ear headphones you will ever find. I have tried a few. I have tried Bose ones and I've tried Sony ones, and then I got these ones. These are the best by far. I love that the Maxes have, you can turn them noise cancelling, but you can also turn the noise cancelling off so that you can hear around you. Sometimes I get flack when people like see me wearing these when I'm doing like a video and the kids are in the house. If I'm wearing these and the kids are in the house, they're on ambient mode. So I can still hear absolutely everything going on around me. They're not noise cancelling. The only time I'll turn them on noise cancelling is when I'm by myself and I know like my house is locked and I'm nice and safe, because it kind of freaks me out, the idea that I could have noise cancelling on and someone could be in my house and I wouldn't even know. But I wear my headphones like everywhere. I sometimes wear them to the shops when I'm just like, I don't want to talk to anyone, I'm feeling overstimulated. I wear them at night and play like music while I read into my ears. I wear them while I'm cleaning. I wear them while I'm doing work. Like I love my AirPod Maxes. They are not cheap, but they are worth every single penny. Best things ever. And, you know, Black Friday's coming up. Christmas is coming up. If you can, I would invest in some, because I love them. Like, they took me a while to get into them. Like, I wasn't reaching for them as much. And then once I've gotten into them, I'm like, oh, no. These are lit. These are the best. Okay, enough of me yapping about headphones. I feel like this week is a bit funny because it is really a juxtaposition, because it's got this very quite emoji little potty episode that I'm going to be doing today. But then tomorrow morning, there's going to be an After Dark release, and that's like the other end of the spectrum where it's just like fun. We're doing drunk diaries. We're all going to be like talking about our drunk stories I got you guys to send in. So just ignore the difference in that. Like, you want a girl that can do both, okay? And I can definitely give you both ends of the spectrum at any time. But I feel like I'm blabbing to avoid being emotional. I find it really hard to like talk about super deep emotions in front of people. And I feel like motherhood and the love I have for my children is like one topic that I am very guarded about, because it is like my soft spot, I guess. And I am very emotional when it comes to my children and how much I care about them and how much I love them. But I think we should just jump into, I guess I say my note to my daughters, because it's not a letter, because I didn't write out like an entire letter, like, you know, dear Rosie and Benny, like, because I was scared if I did that, I would just not make it through the episode, either feeling really uncomfortable from being like that vulnerable or like just crying. Because I definitely, since becoming a single mother, have had a huge journey with being a mum and what I want for my children and how I think about my girls and my girls' future, and like so much of that has changed in the last 12 months. The first thing that I would want my daughters to know, number one, and I say it to them all the time to this day, and I hope that I keep saying it to them their entire life, is that you were made with love. And this is something that I find really important to stress to them, coming from a home where their mum and dad don't live together. And the concept of love and family is a bit different for them than other people, especially it will be for them for their whole life. Like, Benny was not even 18 months when my ex and I separated. So she will have a very different view on love, marriage, relationship than someone who, you know, had their parents with them their whole childhood and living in the same house and, you know, all of that. But the biggest thing I always say to them all the time when they ask me really big questions is, you were made with love, from love, even if mummy and daddy are not together anymore and don't romantically love each other anymore. And I think it's really important for them to know that they were so deeply wanted, they were so deeply planned for, and they were conceived and grown and raised with so much love in both of our hearts. And they came into the world with us wanting nothing but the best for them and their future. It's really important for them to know that family can look different and co-parenting can be a really challenging thing to do. And I definitely don't think that, you know, I'll get it right all the time, but I don't think it diminishes the amount of love that I have for them and the amount of love that I have for our family unit. And this is actually a question that I had with Rosie recently, which really shook me. And she was like, you know, how come you and daddy don't love each other anymore? And one thing I really stress to both of our girls is that daddy and I do love each other in the way of we will always be family to each other and we will always look out for each other. And I really stress that to the girls, that like their dad and I are not on opposite teams. And I make that a really, really important point, that no matter what, whether we live in separate houses, we have our own partners, whatever the case is, we are one family unit and we are all on the same team, and that Benny and Rosie don't have to choose a side because mummy and daddy will always be on the same side when it comes to them and when it comes to parenting. And look, to be honest, shockingly, well, not shockingly because their dad is a great dad, but we actually have had no issues with that concept. When it does come to our children, and I've said this a lot of times, we really are good at prioritizing them, putting their needs first, putting their wants first, and just putting on our big adult pants and slapping on a smile and sucking it up and making it work when it comes to parenting. We do really have discussions about how everything should go. We make joint decisions. We are on each other's side. For example, my youngest the other day was in bed and she said, "Oh, mummy, my ex's new partner's name and her child's name are my best friends in the whole entire world." And honestly, my just like off the knee jerk reaction to that was, "Oh, that's so beautiful. How amazing. I'm sure they would love to hear that." And I actually kind of like stopped for a second. I was like, "Oh, good on you, Bella." Like you could have so easily then been like, "Oh, what about mummy? Isn't mummy your best friend?" Or like blah, 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 blah. But I was like, she's too, she doesn't really know what she's saying. Like I'm sure she loves me and she loves her dad and whatever, but if she is telling me that she really likes being around her dad's new partner and her dad's new partner's child, well then that's amazing and I'm really happy for her and I'm excited for her to, you know, communicate with me like, hey, there's someone in my life that, you know, I really like being around and they make me really happy. And that's what I mean by like we always take on a position of like we are on the same team and it is not about the adults that are fighting and it's about the children and making sure they have the most stable home environment that they can have. And I think that is what I really mean when I say that they were made from love. And that is always the foundation that we did work off, we will work off, we have been working off. And I think that's really evident and apparent with the way that this separation and divorce has gone. And I think I can say with so much confidence that they were made with so much love because we have been able to stay true to the decision we made when we decided to fall pregnant with our first child, which was if we bring a baby into the world, we are going to make sure that they are cherished, that they are looked after, that they are loved, and that they are a priority always. And I'm really proud that that is something so far. Look, we're only just over a year in, but I'm really proud that so far that is something we have been able to maintain and uphold. And it it's something that makes me feel really proud about how I am as a parent, how I did at choosing someone to co-parent with. Look, maybe as a partner, as a husband, I didn't make all the right choices, but as a parent, I think watching us go through this really challenging time for us romantically, and knowing that as parents, we have still been able to do a job that I'm really proud of, and that, I think has kept our children very stable and very happy. And, moving forward, oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional just talking about this, but I'm really proud of that, because being a mother is the most important thing to me in the entire world. It's funny, I feel like online, sometimes the hate rhetoric is that I don't really care about being a mum, and I'm very disinterested, and I'm a lazy mum. And I think if everyone knew me really deeply and really personally, you would know that is like the furthest thing from the truth, that being a mum is kind of how I measure myself against everything. And it is the true thing that I've, really prioritize and value about my personal character, how I perform as a mum, and I take it really seriously. And I think underlying it all, that was a huge part of the devastation of my marriage breakdown, was like I really felt like I had failed as a mother. Wow, I'm getting very emotional about this. I really thought I had failed as a mum, and I'd let my children down. And because it's something that means so much to me, that was really heartbreaking, because their childhood, their happiness, how they grow up, like literally it is the number one most important thing to me. Like people always say like, oh, like you became a single mom and, you're just bummed out and you like kept everything together and you just hustled and then you built all this stuff for yourself. And I was like, yeah, because I made a promise to my children that I would give them the best life possible. And I killed myself to keep that, because it means more than anything in the entire world to me that they are happy and they have the best opportunities and the best life and, the most comfortable life. And I, had a lot of challenges in my childhood that I don't want to repeat and I don't want to pass on to them. And I will do anything I can to make that happen. So when I say to them that they were born out of love, they were made with love, and that is the underpinning of their foundation, and I can say that with so much confidence, it makes me very, very happy. The next thing that I would always want my children to know is that they will always be worthy. I touched sort of on before about inner child and how sometimes writing stuff or reflecting on things you would say to your children or, messages you would pass on to your children can be really healing for your inner child. I feel like my concept of worthiness and self-love and self-appreciation really transformed when I had children. I feel like when you have your own child, especially being a woman and then having a daughter, and you feel the love that you have for your child and you feel the deep, sometimes when I'm talking about the way I feel about my kids, like love isn't even a good enough word, I'm like, there needs to be a different word that's just for like a mother's love for their child, because it is truly something that you do not comprehend and you do not get until you, bring your own baby into the world and, raise them. And because sometimes, it was for me, but I know it's not for every woman. Like sometimes you don't get that instant feeling of connection when they're passed on to you, but you do get that like instant feeling of like, this is my responsibility and this is the person I'm going to grow and I'm going to look after and I'm going to feed and house and all of those things. And I feel like just naturally when you are prioritizing and loving on something that much, you cannot help but have this like deep, deep connection to them. And I could look at my daughters at any time and just think, oh my God, you are so incredible. You are so beautiful. You are so intelligent. You are so wonderful. Like I look at them sometimes and just think, I grew you in my stomach. What the heck? Like you were literally smaller than a poppy seed and now you are like 2 years old, running, jumping, laughing, talking, telling me your dreams, your wishes, your fears. Like And I did that. I grew you in my stomach. Like, how can I not look at you and not think like you are the most incredible, amazing, wonderful miracle in the world? And, I would never, ever, 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 like, I really feel like there would be such few things that my children could ever do that would cause me to look at them and not think those things and not think how beautiful they are and how incredible they are and how much I love them and how proud I am of them. And when I sort of realized that and those feelings I had towards them, I was like, oh, I'm sure that my mum must feel this same way about me. Even now that I'm 30 years old, I'm sure she looks at me and is like, oh my God, I grew you. I birthed you. I raised you. And look at you. You're this fully functioning adult woman who's now a mother for herself and has these two beautiful children. Like, I'm sure my mum looks at me and is like, you are so amazing. I love you so much. You are so beautiful. You are everything and more. And I think when you realize that, it's kind of hard to not feel like you are worthy, and that you have a purpose and you mean something to people and you matter. I guess that's something that I would always want my children to know, is that like their worth isn't on how they look or how others see them or how much they achieve. It is just simply a byproduct of them existing. By them being alive, to me, they are worthy. They are enough. They are everything. And I think that is such an important message that all women, especially, like obviously boys go through, worth issues and whatever, but I feel like woman to little girl, especially, in a society where there are a lot of pressures put on women to look a certain way and act a certain way and be a certain way and perform in certain ways and contribute to society in certain ways, I think it's really easy to feel a lot of pressure and to have a lot of negative self-talk. I did a whole episode with Danielle Mitchell around sort of my history, and I had an eating disorder. I had really low self-worth and had a lot of like self-consciousness. And it's really easy to get wrapped up in all of that as a woman. And now that I've become a mum and I look at my children through the lens of a mother, I think, wow, how could I have ever thought that I didn't have things to give and I didn't have purposes to serve and I wasn't someone special or meant something to someone? And so I think a really big thing that I would always want my children to know is that that is how I look at them every day, from the moment they wake up to the second they go to sleep. Even when they're really naughty, and I hate using the word naughty, but look, sometimes toddlers are naughty. They are. Like, there's no other word for it. Like, they are just a bit naughty. They do things they know they shouldn't for no apparent reason. Even in those moments, I still deeply love them. I still cherish them. I still think they are the best. Even when I'm so angry and so frustrated and feeling so just like, being a mum so hard today, I still deeply, 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 deeply love them. And I would want them to know that always. I think if there was only ever one thing that I could pass on to my children or discuss with my children, or a life learning that I could ever share with them, I would 100% want to talk to them about what I've learned about love and accepting love in our lives, especially around the concept of how in love there is always space to love someone while choosing yourself. I think, there is a lot of confusion between what is love and then what is complete codependency, where you lose yourself and you're unhappy and you're miserable and you're telling yourself, oh, well, I just have to do this and I have to work through it and this is called sticking it out. And I think I had very naive concepts of love when I got married. And of course I did. I got engaged at 20. I got engaged at 23. Yes, I just turned 23. So I got engaged at 23. And I didn't really understand much about the world or relationships because, well, I married the first adult boyfriend I really had. And I was definitely in love. I don't do not, discredit that. And I had some really beautiful years with my ex-partner, but I definitely had a concept of love that was very two-dimensional. It had no nuance, and it really had a lot of shame towards myself in terms of like, I can't ask for anything, I can't prioritize anything, and being in love means sacrificing everything. And I think that is a really common pipeline for women to kind of fall into with love and, really confuse what is a healthy relationship and what is just like detrimental compromise. And so if I could really communicate one thing to them, it would be what healthy love looks like, what good partnership looks like. It's what communication looks like, what respect looks like. And truly, when people query me and say, how did you leave your marriage and how did you get the courage to do that? Genuinely, the biggest thing that played in my mind when things were happening in real time was, what message will my choices now communicate to my children in 10, 15, 20 years? And that's a really big question to ask yourself in real time when you can't predict the future and you can't know if you're making the right decisions. But I just kept thinking to myself, when my daughters become adults and they look at my situation and they know the whole story and know everything that's going on, how will they think about the choices I made? And I also thought, if I was, in 20 years' time, sitting in my kitchen, having a cup of coffee with my daughter, and she said, Mum, I've got something to tell you, like this is happening in my marriage, what advice would I give her on how to handle that situation? What would I tell her as someone who deeply loves her, wants the best for her, would, never compromise on her love, happiness, whatever? What would I be communicating to her? And then I just said, okay, whatever you would say to her, that's what you're going to do for yourself right now. And so I think when people say like, how did you do it? It was really easy when I just imagined that I was my children, and I kind of like got out of myself and put myself in my role of being their mum. And I imagined, okay, you're Rosie right now, and she's coming to mum to be like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? Whatever you tell her, you're going to do that. And then it sort of made me realize like, wow, why have I not been thinking about love in this capacity my entire life? I guess I'd never really felt like I'd had a reference for unconditional love. And so the only way that I could kind of do that was to take the unconditional love that I feel for my children and apply it to myself. Yeah, I'd want them to know that there is power in choosing yourself in love, and that there is no situation that should ever need you to compromise so hard that you lose yourself in love. It just shouldn't be a thing. And, if that's happening, it's not love and it's not healthy and it's not a relationship you should be striving towards or trying to maintain. And I left because I wanted them to know that if the love was not everything I deserved, I didn't want them to see me settling for it. I just didn't want them to. I didn't want that to be like a foundational reference for them on what marriage and love and partnership should look like. If I couldn't show them the best, I would rather show them me on my own. And, I think that's a really harsh thing to kind of put myself in, and being like, putting myself in the situation where it's like, if you can't show them the best, don't show them anything at all, like be on your own instead. But I always tell myself, when I signed up to being a mum, I knew there'd be sacrifices and I knew there would be hard things to do. And I still decided to go ahead with having a baby. And there are sometimes times in life where those, that choice of I'm going to love them, I'm going to prioritize them, I'm going to look after them, I'm stepping into this role of mum that I made, when I first fell pregnant, I put to the test. And you're kind of put in the situation where it's like, okay, you made all these big calls. Now it's time to pay up. Now you got to follow through with it. And I remind myself that no one put a gun to my head and told me that I had to be a parent. It was something that I chose, and it is something that I love, and it is something that I cherish, and it is something that I wanted more than anything in the world. And so sometimes that means that I have to make a hard choice, and I have to do hard things, and I have to put them over me. And that is, I guess, the price you pay for having the most beautiful relationship, connection, understanding of love in the world. I think it's really important to me as the girls get older that I want them to really understand that as their mother, while it is the most incredible role in my life, it is the thing that brings me the most fulfillment, it makes me the happiest, it is, the best and most cherished thing in my life, being their mum. I want them to also know that being a mum is a real job. It is a real labor of love. There's a reason it's called a labor of love. It's hard work. And that I am a human being, and that, there is no such thing as a perfect mum. And I really hope that as this journey continues on, that I am able to have those conversations with them and really show them that to be a good mum is to not be a perfect mum. It's to be an honest one, and it's to be an open one, and it is to be, an emotionally intelligent one. And going into being a stay-at-home mum for the, 3 and a bit years that I did it, I really didn't understand that concept. I really thought that there was this way that you could be the perfect mum and do everything right. And there was this crazy standard I held myself to. And in those first couple of years, I really put a lot of pressure on myself and really, really put a lot of restrictions around myself. And I think, especially the process of becoming a single mum, but as I got more into my journey of being a stay-at-home mum and having more kids, I really learnt about patience and about forgiveness. And I was really challenged and softened, and really understood the true meaning of having grace for people. And, it's a really beautiful journey into your feminine energy and how you nurture and how you show up in the world. And I think a really beautiful thing about motherhood, it is not finite, it's not final, it is not self-assuring. Like, it doesn't have to be proving that you are something. It can be a journey of finding who you are. And I really would love to have those discussions with them as they grow, and kind of explain that, like, mummy is learning just as you guys are learning, and mummy is, finding herself still every day and still growing and maturing and learning as a person. And I think having those open discussions with them and explaining to them how being a mother can be both so fulfilling and so beautiful, but so hard, and such a thankless job and task, is a really important thing to pass on. Because, maybe one day they want to be mums. Maybe one day they want to have their own children, and I want them to not pedestal me and not put pressure on themselves. I want them to know, like, oh, I know mum had challenges. Oh, I know mum did this. I know mum struggled with these things. I think it's really important in my household that we don't just sugarcoat everything. We don't just show that everything's amazing and okay. I always have a big rule in our house that there is no such thing as a can't ask why, how, or what question. I want them to ask why. I want them to ask what. I want them to ask how. I want to have those conversations, obviously in age-appropriate ways, but I want to have them. Like, I always have people online tell me, oh, this video, like, if your child saw this, like, how did you think they'd feel? And I really confidently would want to say, I don't think they'd feel any certain way, because I'd hope that we'd already had that discussion. I'd hope they'd understand. I don't want to hide anything from them. As long as it's age appropriate, I want to have the discussion with them. I want them to understand things. And I think sometimes that is a problem, or a way that people can go wrong in parenting, is, trying to hold back anything hard or dark or sad or scary from your kids and really just sugarcoating everything in life. And obviously I'm a big believer in like children should be children and you should have a really happy, nice, innocent childhood. Like you only get it once and, you know, the world's big and bad and ugly enough and they will eventually learn that one day. I don't want to speed that process up too much. But then I also think it's important for them to understand the ebbs and flows of life because I say this all the time now, I really feel like the bad makes the good so much better. You know, like when you have really bad times, like the last year I've had a really rough time. It was a really shit time. It was a really hard time. Now I think back on it and I'm like, yeah, that was shit. I never want to do that again. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But wow, has that put in perspective how amazing some things are now, how beautiful some things are now, how lucky I am for some things, and how grateful I am for other things. And I think that's a really important life skill and something that I hope I would be able to pass on to the girls. I did write down like a few little things where I was like, if I could only say a couple of sentences to them, what would I always want them to know? And so I'm going to put this in here in case they ever do get to listen back, but maybe this is something that you need to hear right now if you're listening to this and you're feeling a bit lost or a bit lonely or, I don't know, a bit neglected. So, girls, you are always loved, no matter the season of our lives. You can do hard things. I promise you. I've done them and I survived. You are allowed to feel big feelings. You are allowed to have loud thoughts that you speak out loud. You are allowed to take up space and you are allowed to make noise. You never have to shrink to be loved. You are my greatest teacher and I am so grateful for you. I love you very much and no matter what, you can always come home to me. Wow. I told you guys, being a mum makes me very, very mushy. You know what I should have done as my nightstand recommendation? There is a beautiful book that I was given when I had postpartum depression about motherhood, and it is filled with a whole bunch of poetry that I have absolutely loved, and I'm going to leave it in the show notes. And if you want to hear someone really reflect on the complexities of being a mum and how beautiful but challenging it is, I would highly recommend. Please know you'll probably sob reading a lot of it. Like I said, I will put the book in the show notes, but yeah, I would highly recommend if you feel like having a little cry and feeling a bit sentimental, it is a good one. Now, I know that we don't do Mind After Midnight anymore in this season. That was the little homework that went with last season. But I'm going to say just for this episode only, I really loved sitting down and writing out things that I would want to pass on to my children that I have learned, that I'm proud of, that, you know, are just reflections that I think are really important. And I would highly recommend if you have, 15, 20 minutes to yourself, sit in a really beautiful place, maybe outside, maybe somewhere you're super comfortable, makes you feel very safe and secure, and write a letter to your children. You could write one letter combined. You could write 2 letters separately, 3 letters, 4 letters, however many kids you have. Just have a reflection on all the things you've learned or all the things you want for them, your hopes and dreams for them, your aspirations, the things you would want to tell them in 20 years. Write them down, type them up if you're not a handwriter, and actually either print it out or, pop the letter in a little envelope and pop it away and read it in a couple of years' time. I actually, when I was doing this episode, read the letter that I wrote at the motherhood retreat to the girls and what I wanted them to know, and it was a really special experience that, I was really grateful that I did do that a year ago, and it was cool to reflect on what I said then and what I'd learned since then. It kind of feels weird going into a bedtime story or like a little life update after that, big brain dump just then and that big emotional gush I just did then. But I feel like it is, a nice way to kind of like break things up and not make you guys all leave on my like emotional heaviness. I've had a really cool kind of experience this week, and it's around Rosie and her birthday. So I guess it's kind of apt, but she's turning 4. And, it's so funny. Every single year I always think like, oh, and now this year's the first year that she can actually, you know, X, Y, and Z about a certain milestone. And then every single year I think, oh, I thought last year, you know, was the first year she could conceptualize this. No, this year is the first year she can conceptualize this, because they obviously grow and develop so much each year. But she's turning 4, and this was like the first year that she kind of came to me and she said, Mum, I know what I want to do for my birthday. I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, you know, I want to have a unicorn party, and I want everyone to come to my party in princess dresses. I was like, okay. And she's like, and I don't want any boys at my party except one boy. And then she said the name of like this friend. She has a daycare. And that's a point that we're currently discussing, because I'm like, you can't just have him be the only boy. Poor little guy. Anyway, and then she's like, and I want a unicorn cake, and I want it to have Elsa sparkles on it, which makes me think she just wants a unicorn cake to have glitter on it. I hope I'm interpreting that right. And then she goes, you know, and I want to have it here, and I want to get this for my present. And it was just so cool to kind of sit back and be like, wow, like this is really happening. Like I'm getting to the point now, like I don't think I'm 100% there yet, but I'm definitely creeping up on it, where it's like my child really has like a personality and a voice of their own and like wants of their own. And like, I guess this is the bit that when you were pregnant, you were really like, I don't know, maybe it was just me, but I would always like daydream about this. Like, can't wait till my kid has interests and has things that they like and friends and wants to do things and gets excited for like their birthday and Christmas and, you know, all that really fun stuff that was childhood. And it's so cool that I've kind of gotten to that point now where I'm like, oh, okay, sick. Like we're here now. I'm really happy. Like my ex and I have decided that we will do her party together. We'll host it together. We're just doing it at like a local park because it's just nice, easy, neutral ground. And we're kind of planning it together, and we've had discussions about it together, which I'm really happy. I'm happy that, you know, we're coming into year 2. This is the second time we're going to do that with Rosie. We did a similar thing for her birthday last year. I'm really happy that even after both of us getting new partners and we're still in like the thick of our divorce, we can still come together and do birthday stuff for her. And it's just been really exciting. A lot of pressure though. It's not like they're just like little babies and it's like, oh, they won't even remember this or they won't care or whatever, you know, like when you're planning a party for like a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, even to a degree, a 3-year-old, like they're just happy to be there no matter what. Like they don't have expectations. But now we're hitting the like milestones where it's like, oh no, you have expectations, you have wants, you have things that you're like looking for from me. And so I definitely do feel the pressure on that. And I'm hoping like when she says stuff, I'm like, okay, don't change your mind. Keep this, whatever it is that, you know, you want. And I hope I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly. And like you guys know, like toddlers, although she won't be a toddler anymore. When they're 4, they're no longer considered a toddler. They're considered a preschooler, which is so sad. Like, what do you mean my baby's not going to be a toddler anymore? That is such a sucky mum thing to say, but I know that all mums kind of go through that experience, especially with your first, like, you know, they're like your first little baby. Like, what do you mean? But yeah, it was really cool and I'm really excited. Like I'm actually super excited for her birthday and Christmas this year because I'm like, oh yeah, she gets it. She understands. Like we're on here, boys. We're on. Like she's so into Santa and like she asked me, you know, can I be this for Halloween to go trick-or-treating? And like it's just really fun and it's been a really nice sort of point to get. So I guess if you're listening and maybe, you know, you have a younger kid under 4 and you're kind of like, when is all this fun stuff like going to happen? I feel like, as we've gotten to like 4 years old, I'm like, oh, okay. Now we're getting into like the good bit of it. Now we're getting into the bit where like they're really understanding and they're asking for things and they're getting involved. And yeah, it's been great. I've loved it. Well, thank you for coming on this journey, this episode with me. Thank you for letting me get mushy for a while and putting all of those thoughts onto an episode. I just, really wanted them in one place. I wanted to have like an episode that I could reference, you know, in a couple of years' time and look back on my learnings and what I've grown and if I still believe a lot of them and if I still would pass on the same advice. Like I just wanted sort of like pinpoint in time, and I just thought it would be really nice to do this at, you know, towards the start of this season and just do some self-reflection on camera. I do a lot of self-work and a lot of self-reflection, you know, off mic, off camera to myself. And I was like, you know what, maybe doing a little bit with you guys is something nice, because I always find it interesting when I hear what other people reflect on and their thoughts and feelings, especially around motherhood. I just love connecting with other people around motherhood and hearing other people's thoughts around motherhood. I promise the next couple episodes are not going to be as heavy or emotional as this. I do have some guest episodes coming up, which I'm really excited. I've got some recording of those coming up, and then in a few weeks you'll hear some beautiful, lovely guest voices in your ear, which I think you guys are going to love. I've been very intentional about guests this season, and so I hope you guys are going to love them. My dog is barking and going crazy in the background, so if you've got that on the back of the audio, my apologies. But on that note, I think he's rushing me. I think he's wrapping me up. So I'm going to love you and I'm going to leave you, and I'll see you next week. Sweet dreams.